This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with hustro.com, a leading construction management software tool. Hello Gaffers, Gavin Coyle. I'm the Gaffer. We're back again for another construction podcast. Today we're actually going to do a solo one, and it's about the construction leadership gap. So I know that from some of the comments, some people are being asked to talk about the whole area of leadership within construction, and obviously the gap in the market in terms of, where are all the leaders? Are we bringing our leaders through the system? We're in the recruitment business, and we're in the recruitment of health and safety professionals. We're struggling to get, really good health and safety professionals. There's plenty of safety people out there, but it is difficult to try and find the right ones with the right work ethic, the right application of how they apply themselves to the job, and the right leader, because you want someone that's going to lead from the front and sort of carry the safety message forward and stuff like that. So that's from a safety perspective, but overall, from a leadership perspective, there is a gap. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, why is there a gap? Are we doing enough to support the people that we want to be the next generation of leaders within construction? Do you have a program in place? Does the program work? Do you not have a program at all? And it's a culture-based, scenario where you are relying on the people of like the foreman and the supervisors and, the directors coming together and having a sort of a common approach to how to manage projects and to lead from the front. How do you harness that? How do you know what's working and what's not working? Are you using independent advice to see, are you doing the right thing? Do you have regular meetings in terms of, internal meetings to discuss this topic? Or are you just relying on the goodwill that you've taken these people on, put them into a position, and as far as you're concerned, they are leaders. But what is your benchmark for a leader? Do you have a metric within the company for that benchmark? It's a very interesting topic. It has come up a good few times in the podcast, and I think it's something that we could unpack a little bit today in terms of where your business is at. And if anything, hopefully that it'll open up your mind a little bit and say, okay, that's probably not an interesting topic that we haven't discussed, or it's an interesting concept that we haven't even thought about. Or maybe it's something that you are doing, and if you are, please put it in the comments and let us know what sort of initiatives or what sort of program or what sort of benchmarking or what sort of, policy do you have in terms of leadership within your organization. You might be a mature organization and you might have all this stuff. You might be a mature organization and have none of this stuff. It'd be interesting to see in people's comments how they approach the whole area of leadership and what they see is leadership, or what does leadership mean to them. I suppose the truth about true leadership, it doesn't have to be somebody that's very vocal. And I think that's something that we probably would have, in my opinion, would have maybe, the person that spoke loudest was probably seen as the main leader, or somebody that, was very confident in their own ability and therefore maybe is a good leader. And that's me in my ignorance back in the day. You don't have to be very vocal in order to be a great leader. You can lead from the front by how you delegate, how you are able to communicate in such a way. It might even be something that's just taking somebody aside and having a one-to-one with them and saying, look, I think we need to have a chat about how we can do things better, as opposed to maybe calling somebody out in front of everybody and putting them in an awkward position where, they feel isolated and probably in some cases might feel bullied that they're being, taken aside in front of, or taken on task in front of their peers or in front of their workers, which is not leadership. But then there could be times when you do need to pull people together as a group and have a chat to them as a general group. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I suppose the true leadership is knowing how to read the room, and whether it's a one-to-one conversation or whether it's a group conversation. It's definitely something that I definitely think about more and more these days, is when I'm talking to leaders, it's great to get the different sort of behaviours that leaders carry and the qualities that they carry. I come across some people and they mightn't say much, but when they do say something, and you've often heard this, everybody listens and the whole room goes quiet because, when they do say something, there's generally people stand up and go, if this person has something to say, I want to hear it. But I suppose the question for everybody here is, how long does it take to become a leader? Are you born as a leader? This is stuff we cover in the podcast as well, is, is this something that you can create? Is this something that you can mold somebody into being a great leader? Or is it something that maybe becomes natural to people? I always really get stuck on this topic because I've seen both sides of it. I've seen where people have been brought through the ranks and made a leader and have become brilliant in that role. Likewise, you've seen people being brought through that role and they're terrible leaders, but they've been enabled. Once they've got into that position, they've been very good at manipulating the situation, manipulating their position, and it becomes kind of like a power play. And some people are very good at getting into the power position within, it doesn't have to be construction, but within a company. They're very good at manipulating people, manipulating the system, manipulating the interview system, manipulating the whole approach and getting into a position of power and then abusing that power. And look, it doesn't happen in every business and in every construction business. It doesn't, but there is, you'll know from listening to me, you probably know at least one person that has got into a power position that should never have been put into that position. But how did they get into that position in the first place? That's the question we need to ask. And did we not go through the due diligence stage enough back in the day to understand whether this person could actually take a position of power? Psychometric testing, people talk about it. I do believe it has a good place in the workplace in terms of understanding people's behavioural qualities, or for want of a better phrase, lack of skill sets or lack of behavioural qualities. I don't know if you've ever done it before, but I would strongly suggest that you actually take, maybe do it as a initiative one of yours. It really is a good, like you could use it as a sort of a workshop with your management team. Like if you're having a company day out or something like that, and you want to do some sort of some sort of initiative. I think it's a really good initiative to bring in somebody and do behavioural assessments on the leadership, and then understanding the different traits that people have. It's very, very interesting once you start going down that road, because you can actually see where maybe Gavin doesn't work well with other people because Gavin's personality works against another personality. So therefore, if you put Gavin and Mary or Paul together, they won't work as efficiently as if you've put somebody else with a different mindset or a different behavioural set. It'd be well worth your time and your money and your effort just doing it as a sort of a fun topic, rather than trying to go straight in and using it as your new interview process or whatever else. But definitely something that you should look at. And I would start there in terms of, if I was building a program for leadership, the first thing I'd be looking for is, can we identify a really good behavioural assessment tool? And it doesn't have to be a tool. It could be somebody that that's in the industry that's really good and that has a proven record of interviewing people from a behavioural based logic, and then coming back to you with a sort of, well, here's the reasons you would employ this person, here's the reasons you wouldn't employ this person, but here's the task that you have, and here's why these people would be good at the task but might not be a good leader for the task. And that's what we're talking about today. And data is everything, as we know today. You can't have enough data, and this is one really good touch point, I think, from my experience working with construction owners, is a missing tool in their toolbox. And why would you not do it? Like, other companies have the advantage over you by using behavioural psychometric testing tools. And again, it can be a consultant either. From that, then you can get a good. Now, you might still go with a person. You might still say to yourself, look, I know there's some poor qualities here that's come back on the behavioural assessment tool, but I still have a really good gut feeling for this person. And maybe, you want to do an extra bit of due diligence on the person, because, it's flagged up on the assessment that there's this particular area that the person is not good at, and you need that person to be good at that. But there's stuff that you can upskill that person, and maybe go back to the person and say, look, says here you're not really good at delivering a message to people. We can work on that with presentation skills. training. We can work on that in terms of not putting you into, the fire, if you like, in the first early stages of what we want you to do, and we're just going to feed you in gently, but at least you've got stuff that you can work on. And I think from my experience is that in the recruitment side of things, sometimes there's a lot of trust upfront given by you, the employer. And I believe that's a misplaced trust, that if you don't do the front loading in the interview process too late by the time you actually give them the contract and they're on board, and actually you realise not 100% sure we made the right decision here. And then how do you unravel, especially if you put somebody in a leadership role, how do you unravel that? Because if they're good enough to get into a leadership role, they're good enough to sort of hold their own ground in terms of being challenged, in terms of if you were to go back to them and go, well, hold on a minute, we don't agree with this or don't agree with that. Next thing all of a sudden, you've got a contentious issue going on with the leader that you've employed, that you've put in front of all your staff and all your employees, and you've told all your clients, customers that, look, here's this person, we're putting them into a director role, could be operations manager role, whatever that is. And now you're having second thoughts, or you're having a problem with the role. That is a really, really difficult situation to be in. And I don't envy people trying to get out of that scenario. But the truth of the matter is, you need to cut that cord fairly quick, and you're going to have to do a deal that affects obviously your bottom line, because you're going to have to pay this person off, but you're going to have to do it in such a way that it's managed out of the business for the best of everybody, and that you have the honest conversation with the individual and say, look, it hasn't worked out. Now, obviously, there's probation periods for everybody, but you may very well have taken someone through your own employees and actually, promoted them up into a leadership position, which can be just as traumatic for everybody, because now you've brought somebody in that's, well regarded within the employees, but then all of a sudden didn't work out as a leader. That's a tough one. That's a very tough one for you. So, can't emphasize enough how we need to do more of the due diligence side of things and the front loading of everything in the interview stages, and the selection process needs to be so on point. You're not going to get it right. That's the question. That's the big thing. Another big takeaway today. You will not get this right, because it will go wrong. It mightn't go wrong for the first year or 2 years or whatever else. It could go wrong later on, or it might just go wrong straight away. But recruitment is a very difficult business in terms of getting it right the first time around. But you will learn from your mistakes, and you will learn from some of the stuff that you've tried to put into the business that didn't work. You need to understand as well in terms of leadership. Some people want to get into the leadership role purely from a money perspective as well. It helps fund a better lifestyle for themselves and their families, which is, I've no problem with that. But, if that's the main driver, that's a problem for you, because, they're taking away a position where you could have somebody else, what we call A players or grade A players in the team, and if somebody's holding up that position because it's just purely a money grab situation, and they're not really, they're well able to play the game in terms of showing that they might be a good leader, but they're actually not delivering. That's a problem for you. So again, with the behavioural assessment and the tools like that, you will actually identify some people that might have what's your driver? Is your driver's money? And people might say, well, if money is your driver, that's great, because this person wants to get on and wants to get into bigger positions and wants to, and there is some people that money is a driver, and it is making them a good leader, because they're studying in the evenings, going back to college or whatever else, or they're driving it hard, and that's good. But there is some people that will just use it as a money grab situation, and leave you sort of in a poor position, because now you're paying a lot of money for somebody that's not really delivering at the level that you need them to deliver at. In terms of peer-to-peer leadership, it is a good idea as well. What I would suggest is that you have, not just your HR team, but you have a working group together. A leadership group is what some companies might put in place and do put in place in terms of an executive leadership group. And I would suggest you always have at least one person that's outside of the company that's on that group, and that group would meet and then discuss, where the gaps are in leadership within the business. They discuss other stuff as well, but like in terms of this is a massive decision for your company to make, because you're trying to grow the business and you're trying to bring people with you, and you're trying to increase the profitability of the business and create a sustainable model for yourselves going forward. So, even don't think that just because you're not a tier one, that you wouldn't have an executive leadership team. It could be 2 people on the executive leadership team. It doesn't matter. But, I would suggest that you have an outside independent person on that. Not like it doesn't have to be a consultant. It could be somebody that you respect. It could be a family member. It could be, somebody that's in the industry. Or it could be even, a friend of yours that owns a building company as well and has done this before. Or it could be somebody retired. But somebody that doesn't have an emotional skin in the game. And what I mean by that is the obvious thing is that you can get caught up in the emotional part of this whole recruitment thing, and it can cloud your judgment in terms of taking on the right person. So having that sort of person on the shoulder, the other side, kind of giving you the balance of, hold on a minute, I'm not really sure about this guy, and even that person maybe going out for a meal or a lunch with the leader or the potential leader, and just getting under the bonnet and talking about them. What do you do in the evenings, what are you doing at the weekends, how are you set up at home, all that kind of good stuff, just to get a sort of a background on individuals as well. And for what it's worth, they may not have something straight away but like, it's just somebody that's outside of the business to give you an outside perspective. I've seen it done and it works, guarantee you. But again, you could be spending northwards of 100,000 here for a leadership position. If it goes wrong, it's not just 100,000. It's all the resources that you've put into this person. It's all the damage in terms of, morale within the business, morale within the people. And then you've got the resources of, HR, health and safety, quality, environmental, whatever, all these people that have been surrounding this leadership person to make them, feel, welcome, make them feel, that you are trusting them. And then all this trust is on the floor because it didn't work out. Now, I'm giving you a worst case scenario as well. But again, the leadership executive team, whatever you want to call it whatever you want, it's a must have. And they would set the tone. They would set what they believe is their idea of a leadership. And again, if you're not sure how to put this together, you can get outside help, put a workshop together and go, look, we want to take somebody on a serious position. It's a major decision for us because it's a big move and we're handing up a lot of our control. Get somebody to workshop that out for you, so that you workshop out, well, what are your requirements? What are your needs? What are your basics? What are your, financials in regards to this? What are your metrics in terms of what you're expecting out of this position? And, what is your values? And we don't talk enough about them in terms of, taking on people, and then aligning all of that together with everybody that's involved in the decision-making process, putting together your job spec then as well as part of the workshop or as part of your internal meeting. And then what do? Are you using a HR company internally, or are you using an external recruitment company, or are you, employing somebody from within? Whatever that process is, so long as you're comfortable with it, so long as you're bought into it, and so long as you give it 100%, go with it and spend the time. And if somebody's not, if it's just not right, if it just doesn't feel right, if there's any inkling that, hold on a minute, I don't think this was the right person, and you can't put your finger on it, you're absolutely right, it is not the right person. And I've seen this, especially in our recruitment business, and I've said it to people, as soon as there's an inkling from the interview that there's a negative, or that the candidate has a negative or brings a negative into the interview, that small negative becomes a very big negative once they're inside in the workplace. I can guarantee you that. And 100% of the times, whenever we've seen the negative either not being recognised by the company, or the negative being brought in by the candidate and it not being sort of given enough focus, then this has come back to haunt them. And I don't know how, it's just something that I think you just have to be in recruitment for a while to understand that concept. And anyone that's in recruitment will know what I mean. But it generally doesn't work out when the candidate is bringing some negative. And what do I mean by negative? Like, I'm not sure that I can commit to those type of hours, that type of negative. Yeah, the travel thing might get me now. Not 100% sure about the travel thing. Another negative. Now I'm not saying that some people go in and they tell you everything you want to hear, and then you take them on and then it becomes completely different. And that happens too. But generally what we found is if you get somebody that's motivated, committed, and has a lot of energy about them in terms of, you get this passion from that they really love their job and they really actually want this particular job that you're given. That's the people I want to bring into an interview. That's the people I want to interview. Whether I take them on or not is another question, but they're the ones that generally work out, is the ones that bring that positive energy and that enthusiasm, and they know everything about your company already before they're even in the company. They know they're bringing case studies of stuff that they've done, that they've delivered, and that, you're not having to pull questions or pull answers out of them with your questions, that they're actually, this thing is just flowing with this person. You'll know from that meeting, hold on a minute, there's something here. The other thing I would suggest is that you do 2 to 3 interviews, a minimum of 2. Again, I'm hearing a lot of people not doing that, and one of the reasons they're saying it is, look, Gavin, the market's so short. I haven't time. If I bring this person in for a second interview, he's going to tell me I'm not going to do the interview, or she's going to say, no. What do you mean a second or third interview? Here, I have a job. I have job offers. I have 3 or 4 job offers. I don't need your job. My answer to that is if they don't want, if they're like that, they're going to go anyway. So it's your process and it's your system. And the reason you're putting in at least 2 interviews is because how can you say you know the person after 1 interview? You just don't. You're taking a shot in the dark. If you're not doing the psychometric testing, or you're not doing some of the, the executive team stuff as well, like, you're going in blind. You really are going in blind. And then, with all due respect, a lot of the recruitment companies, they're looking to pull the invoice. They're not looking to sort of like, here's the CV. As far as they're concerned, once they're in the interview, they're pretty much getting, it's nearly payday for them. And that's not the case. The case should be, we work at this until we get the right person. And, as hard and all as that process is, it's just easier later on once the person is in and up and running. Another thing that you might consider with leadership is the age of the person. And you shouldn't be taking people on and discriminating on their age. And that's not where I'm going with this. What I'm saying to you is, certain people at certain times within their life are more distracted, shall we say, than others. So what do I mean by that? So younger people, or let's say people early mid-20s on to mid-30s, there's kids, there's a marriage after happening, there's a new house, there's so much stuff moving at them that their focus cannot be entirely focused. And if they are, they're going to burn themselves out. And we've seen that. There's some really good leaders in there around that age group, don't get me wrong, 100%. But where I'm going with that is, if you are bringing those type of people in that are at a stage of their life where things are hectic, let's call it, you need to be able to manage that process with that. And identify it, and identify that, look, this person might need additional support here, or we need to be careful how we put this leadership role together for this person, because they've got a lot of stuff going on, and we'll reap the rewards from that later on when, the kids are growing up a little bit more. The mortgage is paid for, or nearly paid for, the bills aren't as high in terms of, their life. And, on the other end of the spectrum, you have people that maybe don't have that, the mortgage is paid, the 2 holidays a year are paid. There's not much debt in the house. There might be a marriage, there might not be a marriage, it might be finished. But, another age group are a little bit more settled, if you like, in terms of they don't have that distraction, and leadership can become fairly natural to them because they're a little bit more mature, a little bit more rounded, and they don't have these distractions. Look, it's just something to consider. I'm not saying to put it in as a policy, but again, life. People have life, and if you put somebody into a leadership position, it is a pretty stressful job. It is a pretty stressful process. So even if, I suppose the main point I'm trying to make is, just because you put them in a leadership role doesn't necessarily mean that they hit the ground running as a leader. And even if they are a good leader, they should always have some sort of a program that supports them as a leader. They need to have some sort of a mentor, and that can be the CEO, it can be their director, manager, whatever that is. It could be an outside person, which we would encourage because we like that, because it becomes easier for the leader to offload in terms of, I'm just not getting on with my director. I'm trying to find ways to, or I'm not getting on with the CEO. I'm trying to find ways to communicate better with the person and stuff like that. So you can have those hard conversations in a safe environment. 100%. If you've got leaders in your business, make sure they're going out to industry events, make sure that they're networking with like-minded people in the same sort of roles that they're in. So they're listening, they're feeding off other people, and they're talking to other people that are in similar roles within other companies and talking to them about how they act as a leader. But then also you have this sort of program parallel where it's like a mentorship program. You can have 2 or 3 mentors. It doesn't have to be one mentor. It can be the CEO, can be one mentor, or the director, and then you can have an outside person as well. You will reap the rewards of that program 100%, guaranteed. Doesn't matter whether you're a small or big company. Everybody needs to have some sort of a soundboard to go to release, take things off your shoulders, get things out of your head, refocus, re-energize, and re-engage. And that's where we see leadership becoming stale if, this ignition is not reignited every couple of months. It doesn't have to be every month. It can be every quarter that you sit down and have a chat with your peer, if you like, or your mentor. And you will reap the rewards because you'll get more sustained, balanced leadership person and team as you move forward. I'm Gavin Coyle. I'm the Gaffer. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. We're nearly heading for 100 episodes shortly, so subscribe and like and hit the notification buttons. If there's any comments on today's show, I'd love to hear them as well. Please throw whatever comments you have in the comments section. We're on YouTube as well, so subscribe and like and hit the notifications. See you on the next show, guys, and thanks very much for joining. Take care. All the best.
Astro is the simplest construction management software. Track progress, control works, access docs, and analyze performance, all in one platform.
First, eliminate planning and tracking headaches. Set up work areas, schedule and assign tasks quickly with our intuitive interface. Track progress in under 15 seconds. Attach documentation, photos, and videos to keep crews aligned. The whole team can communicate with each other through Astro or email, whichever feels more natural. But tracking is just the beginning. Next, standardize and simplify control and assurance. Automatically align inspections with ISO standards and internal procedures to ensure compliance. Connect inspections with issue tracking to identify and address problems quickly. Control quality, safety, and environmental compliance with observation and corrective action tracking. Activate your subcontractors through QR code submission forms and react faster than ever. And when you need information, access project data anytime, anywhere. 1 second drawing load to instantly open any blueprint. Smart file organization to help you find the correct document quickly and easily. Even without an internet signal, you can still access schematics, plans, and specifications. This multi-device power and our Astro Cloud Drive keep you coordinated everywhere. Now, here's where it gets powerful. You can transform your project's data into results. Turn issues into actions with instant insights that spot critical problems before they escalate. Create custom reports in PDF, Excel, or CSV format. Start testing Astro for free today